I asked a man one time, "What are your goals for this month?" And he said, "If I could just scrape up enough money to pay these lousy bills." That was his goal. Hey, I'm not saying it isn't a goal. It is, but it's such a poor goal. It certainly isn't inspiring. You don't jump out of bed on Monday morning and say, "Oh boy, another chance to go out and scrape up the money to pay these lousy bills." The point is that goals should be fun. They should be big, challenging, rewarding. They should allow you to grow. Remember, too, that the major purpose of having a goal is not just to acquire the goal. The major reason for setting goals is to compel yourself to become the person it takes to achieve them. In other words, attaining the goal is of secondary importance. What's far more important is what you become in the pursuit of it. The greatest value in becoming a millionaire, for example, is not the $1 million. The greatest value is the skills, the knowledge, the discipline, and the leadership qualities you acquired in becoming a millionaire. It's the experience you acquired in planning, development, strategy. It's other qualities you acquired, such as courage, commitment, and willpower, to attract $1 million. You could lose everything you attained, but you could not lose the skills, knowledge, and experience you have obtained. Even better than having is being. Here's a most important question to spend some time answering. What kind of person will I have to become to get all I want? Write down a few thoughts on that. Write down some skills you'll have to develop, for example, and some of the things you're going to have to learn. Just spend a little time writing a few sentences on this. What kind of person will I have to become to get all I want? The answer to this will give you some personal development goals. Remember that income does not far exceed personal development. All of us have to do this kind of self-examination. I have to look at my own life and say, well, here's what I want, but am I willing to become what it takes to get what I want? If I'm too lazy, if I don't want to learn, read, study, and grow to become that kind of person, then I cannot attract what I want. Now, either I have to change my wants or I have to change myself. Here are a few more key points I'd like to share with you on goals and designing your future. First, if you don't right now feel as if you're equipped to get all you want, just remember, ability will grow to match your strong dreams. That's why the goal-setting process we've discussed is so important. The more you work on this, the more ideas you will get on how you can change, how you can grow. I am nowhere near the person I was when I met Mr. Shope 25 years ago. I'm not that person anymore. I've changed. There's nothing you can do about the past, but you can do a great deal about your future. You don't have to be the same person you were yesterday. You can make changes in your life, absolutely startling changes, in a fairly short period of time. You can make changes you can't even conceive of now. If you give yourself a chance, your abilities will grow. You have untapped talents and potential that you haven't even reached for yet. And as time goes on, you'll be able to reach deeper and deeper. The first thing you'll know, you'll be able to do things you never thought you could do. You'll be able to handle things you never thought you could handle. You'll have ideas that you've never had before. All of this is sparked by the goal-setting process. When you know what you want, and you want it badly enough, the answers will come to you. I can't tell you why it worked. All I know is it worked.
If you can become a person and engage others, you will now become an extraordinary leader, not a mediocre or good one. As far as I'm concerned, good is the enemy of great. Corny as it sounds. So think about it. I'll give you an example of this book that I did. I did this book because back in 2008, I felt like I was back in my childhood. Everybody around me was suffering. And I hate suffering. Most of the skills I developed is because I want to take somebody else suffering and take them to a place where they have joy and aliveness and health and vitality and abundance or whatever I can do to help. And so I've got the guy that cuts my hair, my barber, is like, his kid can't go to college. He's lost half what he's got to do. A billionaire client of mine is no longer a billionaire. He's feeling equally bad, he thinks, but suffering is suffering in somebody's mind, right? And so I thought to myself, something's got to be done. And like most of us, somebody's going to do something. In 2010, when things actually got worse and the system wasn't changed, I started reading everything I could read, started watching everything I could watch, and I watched a documentary called Inside Job. Anybody here see Inside Job? If you didn't see it, was Matt Damon did the documentary on it, and it won the Academy Award. And it actually walked through systematically and showed how the entire world economic experience, our entire economy as a world, was almost destroyed by a few people, and they identified who they were, how they did it, they documented it all, and then they showed what happened to them. And what happened to them, does anybody know? No, not nothing. Nothing would have been a reward compared to what they should have got. They were actually put in charge of the turnaround. And they were given your money and mine. We were taxed so they could put their money back where it belonged. So at the end of this film, depending upon your personality, if you haven't seen it, I should warn you, you'll have one or two reactions. You'll either be very depressed or very pissed. I was on the piss side. I was so angry, and I thought to myself, nothing's been done. This is insane. And something's got to be done. I thought, everybody says something can be done, but what can I do? And I thought, you know what? I've got access. For 21 years, most people think I'm a happy, bouncing around, positive thinking, screening guy on an infomercial from 20 years ago, but I have continued to grow, not taller, hopefully. But in all that time, for 21 years, I've coached Paul Tudor Jones, who's one of the top 10 financial traders in the history of the world. He's a man who's made more money than almost anyone on earth, along with George Soros and a few other names you may know. But Paul's really unique in that Paul found himself in a position that in 1987, when the stock market crashed, the largest percentage in a day still to this day, he made 20% when the whole world was losing everything. He made 200% that year for his client. Just unbelievable. And then it was like the guy that walked on the moon. What do you do if you walk on the moon? You see that, you look at that incredible view of the earth. It's you seeing it's not a photograph. You come back to the earth, you shake the president's hand, you have a ticker tape parade. Now what do you do? And a lot of those astronauts, if you know the story, actually became depressed because they didn't have what I call a compelling future, something to look forward to. So Paul had a little fall back, and I was called in to turn him around. Came in and started studying everybody around him, figured out what it took to do it, and built a strategy to put him back in state. He's been successful and made money every year for 21 straight years. Every single year. There's no one in his class that's done that. No one. Pretty amazing. I was with him to give example. We were together, and back if you remember in the tech bubble of 2000, it blew up. Paul made money. Right by him, side by side, every single day. He's emailing me every single day. I'm talking in some ways, communicating, or I'm going to see him every 3 or 4 months to be there in person to make sure we keep tweaking the system. I'm not there to be a positive thinking coach. He didn't need that crap. I'm a prepare for anything coach. How do we figure out the strategy? I've always been a strategist. I've never believed in positive thinking. I never told people you should go to your gym or go to your garden, better yet, and chant, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. I'm like, here's the weed, let's pull it out. That's what I do with him. 21 years. 21 years includes 9/11, when the whole markets are blowing up, making money. 21 years includes everything we saw in the subprime crisis, making money. It includes when we all went through the dropping gold, those are associated to it not long ago. So I've been there with all those pieces, and I got a chance to learn from this guy side by side, and I've been able to contribute to him in a significant way.
You'd be shocked how many ministers crumble because they don't have support, and secretly want to get out of the ministry, and are secretly burned out, and are secretly tired, and their marriages are in jeopardy, and their minds are perplexed because they're doing too much. Leaders, if you are doing anything in your church that somebody else could do, you shouldn't be doing. Good leadership is working yourself out of a job. And if you are busy doing stuff that somebody else could do, then you're a control freak. And you need to give up control and allocate that over to somebody that you can trust so that you can reserve yourself for your highest and best use. I want you to ask yourself a question, and every time you take an assignment as a leader, is this my highest and best use? Or am I busy doing something that somebody under me could do? If somebody on your team could do it, you shouldn't be doing it. Because as you go and as you grow, you must reserve yourself for your highest and best use. And if you will relinquish your need to control everything, you will create a place for somebody to serve and alleviate your stress and be better at your highest and best use when you are not distracted by the trivia of doing things that God has called somebody else to do. Elijah comes along and he runs behind Elijah and he says, wait a minute, man, wait a minute, your hands look dusty. Let me pour water on your hands. And Elijah said, in all the time I was calling down fire from heaven, not one person on Mount Carmel ever did that. Nobody helps me be me. And so we've called you to this meeting today because it's not just the people who I had stand that are important. It's the people who are sitting. Because if you don't pour water on the hands of the people who stand, they may not be here next year. And they will be talked about and they will be ostracized, but they died for the lack of you. Their arms got heavy for the lack of you. Their marriages suffered because they were busy doing things that the church said somebody else could do, and they got the divorce for the lack of you. Because there was nobody close to them who urged them to take a vacation, not just going to another conference. A real vacation does not have seminars. I took a bunch of my partners on a cruise, in fact, we flew out from here. We flew up to here and went on an Alaskan cruise, and all that we were on the cruise, my wife and I, when you're on a cruise with your partners and stuff, you can't leave your room with it. The moment you come out the door, there's cameras flashing and people coming up to you and wanting prayer and wanting to discuss scriptures and stuff, so you're kind of in your room like a hostage. When you come out the room, it's like, and they come up, they do whatever it is they want to do, and they say, we hate to bother you you on your vacation? I looked at Blair, I said, this is not our vacation. This is not our vacation, because if it was, you wouldn't be here.
Hi, welcome back to Mind Control.
You got to go, man. You just have to go. Never wait on the right time, because the right time ain't ever coming. All that, when we get my ducks lined up in the row, no, you won't. No, you won't. Because as you have aspirations, you got to understand that the devil understands your aspirations too. The devil's job is to rob you of your destiny. See, devil, he only has one job: to rob you of what God intended for you to be. That's his only job. So he has a lot of people that work for him full time. They're called haters. And they at work all the time. And you all experience with them too. And so what you got to do is, when you have these ideas of greatness, you got to go forward. Because it's not going to be a right time. Just go. Just go. Go jump. Take a chance. I walked in a comedy club October 8th, 1985. Had never been in a comedy club, had only heard about them. I was writing jokes for this comedian. This girl told me, "You're writing his jokes?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Why don't you do them yourself?" I said, "How? Where?" She said, "A comedy club." I said, "What's that?" She says, "Comedy club." She said, "Why are you writing them jokes for him? You ought to tell him yourself." She said, "I'm going to pick you up Tuesday and take you." We drove 45 minutes from Cleveland to Hilarious Comedy Club. I signed up for the following week. 9 guys went up. I was just staring at them. She said, how come you're not laughing? Because I was just staring at them. Because every joke they told, I knew what they were going to say, and deeper than that, I knew what they should have said. And then when the 10th person came up, they called his name and he wasn't there. He got scared and left. So they said, we're gonna go to next week's list. Is Steve Harvey still here? And I looked at her and I said, man, this dude in here got the same name I got. And he said, Steve Harvey, you here? Come on up. I'd never been on stage in my life as a stand-up. I ran up on stage. Long story short, they had a clap off. I won $50, amateur night. For 45 minutes, I cried all the way home. That girl said, why are you crying? It ain't but $50. I said, no, you don't understand. I was born tonight. I said, I'm gonna go back, but this is what I'm gonna do the rest of my life. October 9th, the next morning, I went to my job and quit my job with $50. $50. I just quit. Ex-wife left me. Mother-in-law, boy, I cost some hell. Made $3,000 first year in business, $5,200 the second year, $7,300 the third year. Became homeless, lost everything I ever owned, lived in a car for 3 years. I kept telling them jokes. My father was the only one who believed in me. My mother, my brothers, sisters, all my friends, man, get out of that, man. You ain't making no money. You can't tell no jokes. I just kept on. I just kept on. It didn't line up, but you can't wait till it line up. You gotta jump. If you ever planning on soaring, you're gonna have to jump. Now, I don't suggest you jumping like I did. That ain't for the faint of heart. But if you don't do it now, when you gonna do it?
There was a day that I became wealthy. I'll tell you the day, I know that day I was rich. I was broke, I was pissed, I was angry at everybody else but who? Myself. But really underneath it, I was mad at myself. I just couldn't beat myself up anymore, so I was pissed. And I had a friend that I loaned money to when I had barely enough and I knew he needed it. And I gave him $1,200 and I'm here not able to eat. I'm down to like $25, $26. And I'm saying to him, calling him, and he's not returning my call. And I just need some money and he's ignoring me. I didn't ignore him then, so I'm pissed, I'm frustrated. In the midst of all this, I'm also pragmatic. I got 25 and change, call it $26. What the hell am I gonna do? I don't have any plans for economics. I got overhead that's crazy. I'm living in this little tiny apartment, 400 square feet in Venice, California. So I thought, okay, when I was totally broke early on, when I was 17, I used to save my money up and go to the smorgasbord and load up for Christmas, load up for the week. So I said, I was in Venice, I'm gonna go over to Marina del Rey, where all the yachts are, and there's a place there called El Torito, and I'm gonna go, they have an all-you-can-eat smorgasbord, I'm gonna load up for the winter. I'm gonna get there. So I didn't drive there, because I wasn't gonna spend the gas to get there, plus I needed to walk, so I walked there. And I go in, I'm not dressed really great, but it's Marina del Rey, it's okay. And I got a place right by the window and I can see these yachts going by and I'm dreaming of what life could be like. And I'm starting to let go of my anger and I'm starting to focus on what I want instead of what I don't want. Normally if I'll say I. And that shifted me just a bit. And now I'm eating, which shifted me a lot. And I got this giant plate stacked up. And I don't know what the amount was. It was like, whatever it was, $6.95, $7.95, right? So I'm gonna do this, I could probably do this 3 or 4 times, right? Somewhere in that range. As I'm finishing my meal, this little boy comes in, dressed in a little suit. I honestly don't know how old he'd be, probably in the 3rd grade, so maybe 8 years old, 9 years old, something like that. And he was so adorable, and he opened the door for his mother, and his mother was an attractive lady, and he came over and he pulled out the seat for her, and she sat down. And she was a pretty lady, but as pretty as she was, I was totally obsessed by this boy. He had presence at 7 or 8 years old. And it moved me. I don't know why, it moved me. And I thought, this kid is like pure. I wanted to always be this way. He's such a good kid, he's a giver. So I got up and I paid for the meal, and whatever it was, $6, $7. So now I've got whatever left, $17, $18, $19. And I walk up to this little boy, and I said, excuse me. And I said, I just want to acknowledge you for being such an extraordinary gentleman. I said, I saw the way you treated your lady, how you opened the door, how you pulled the chair out. I said, that's class. I said, my name's Tony, what's yours? I don't honestly remember his name, Charlie or something. And he looked up at me and I said, Charlie? I said, that's amazing, taking your date out for a lunch like this. He goes, well, actually, she's my mom. And I said, that's even more cool. And he said, oh, but I'm not taking her lunch because I'm just, I think he said he was 8. I said, oh, yes, you are. I had no plan for this. I just reached in my pocket. I took all the money I had left, $17, $18, $19, and I put it on the table. I said, you're taking her to lunch. He looked up at me and he goes, I can't take that. I said, sure you can. He said, why? Because I'm bigger than you are. And he smiled real big, and I didn't even look at his mom. I just turned and walked away. And I didn't walk out of that door. I flew home. I should have been freaking out. How the fuck am I gonna eat? But I didn't. I flew because something inside of me had finally got past scarcity. I finally realized there's something inside of us more than our limits, especially around this thing called money that I had let terrorize me. And I got home, and the mailman came that day, and I had no idea I was gonna have my next meal. And a letter comes, and it's from the guy I loaned the money to. Handwritten notes saying, I've been avoiding you, it's wrong, I'm so sorry, you were there when I needed you. Here's what I owe you plus a little bit more. And the $1,200 was there, plus another $100 for the time that I had to take care of it. And for me, $1,300, that was enough to run my show for a month or two. And I cried. And then I decided, what does this mean? And I thought, this means that whenever you give, it's always gonna come back, so you don't have to ever think about that bit again. Just give. And the rewards will be greater than you can ever imagine. I don't know if that's coincidence, but I decided to believe that day was a blessing when I became rich. And I can tell you honestly, I've had tough days in my life, economically, emotionally, like all of us. But I've never gone back to that scarcity, I never will. The secret to living is giving. Do it when you don't have it, and I promise you, scarcity will leave your life.
Setting goals. When I started making my first list, Mr. Shoaff said, Mr. Rohn, he said, I've got a suggestion for you. He said, I think one of the first goals you ought to set, you're 25-year-old American male, sure you've made some mistakes, but now you're on the road to better things. He said, why don't you, among all the goals you're going to set, he said, why don't you set a goal to become a millionaire? A millionaire. Why don't you set a goal to become a millionaire? He said, it's got a nice ring to it. And he said, here's why. Now I thought, the man doesn't need to teach me why. I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great to have $1 million? He said, no, that's not it. Here's why. For what it will make of you to achieve it. And I got one of the greatest classes in one sentence I've ever received in my life. Set a goal that'll make you stretch that far. For what it will make of you to achieve it. What a brand new reason for setting goals. What an all-encompassing challenge to have a better vision of the future. What for? To see what it will make of you to achieve it. And here's why. The greatest value in life is not what you get. The greatest value in life is what you become. Major question to ask on the job is not, what am I getting here? The major question to ask is, what am I becoming here? It's not what you get that makes you valuable, it's what you become that makes you valuable. Then he said, when you finally have become a millionaire, now, he said, what's important is not the money. I thought, wow, I've got some more to learn. He said, no, Mr. Rohn, I'm telling you honestly, you could just give the money away. Now, I did better than that, right? I told you. I lost it all. I'm rich by the time I'm 31. I'm a millionaire. I'm broke by the time I'm 33. Foolish mistakes I made. But what an experience that was. And I'm telling you, the man was right. When I finally was broke at age 33, guess what I discovered? My money did not mean that much. It represented only a fraction of all my assets. Shoaff said, once you become a millionaire, Mr. Rohn, you can give all the money away. Because he says, what's important is not the money. What's important is the person. Now, let me give you the key phrase on setting goals. Set the kind of goals that will make something of you to achieve them. Set the kind of goals that will make something of you to achieve them. Always keep that in mind. What will this make of me? If I set this goal and go for it, not only will I achieve it, but what will it make of me in the process? What a whole new concept on setting goals. Don't set your goals too low. Don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow. Go where the expectations are high. Go where the pressures are to perform, to grow, to change, to develop, to read, to study, to develop skills. The guy says, well, I don't need much. Well, then you don't need to become much.
Many of us are pretty comfortable in our life. We've got a reasonably good income. The mortgage is paid. There's food in the fridge. We've got a nice warm bed to sleep in. And everything seems to be floating along just fine. And you know, a person in that position could very easily think, why would I want to do anything to change this? Well, we have found that if your life is not going in one direction, it absolutely, by law, must be moving in another direction. Many of us have established a comfort zone in our lives. We're just coasting along, taking the line of least resistance. Just getting by. We've all worked hard to get to where we are, and it may seem a very good place to be. The problem with this is that once we stop reaching, stretching, seeking, and risking, we actually stop growing. The comfort zone frame of mind is settling for what we are today. That may be fine today, but without continued growth, and I believe this is the key line coming up, we are now all we are ever going to be. If you're in a comfort zone, beware. The danger of a comfort zone is that it doesn't hurt, and it might even feel good. Many take that to mean it's a good place to be, but it's not. A comfort zone may be what is holding you back from real growth, real accomplishment, and your potentially exciting and rewarding future. Now, I've mentioned if we're not going in one direction, we must by law be going in another direction. You're either creating or you're disintegrating. Whenever we hear a person say, I like it just the way it is, we know that person is advertising their ignorance of a very basic law of life, because absolutely nothing stays the way it is. I think, have been raised to believe that education is going to school for a certain number of years and be able to correctly answer a series of questions. But you know, many people will go to school all their life and be able to correctly answer the questions, but then when it comes to getting out into the marketplace and really making it happen, they just don't know how to compete. Many are withdrawn. They don't even feel comfortable meeting or greeting a stranger. Now, I think you know, and I know, that if we're going to improve, we have to have a very open mind. I once heard that an open mind was being prepared to throw away some of our most cherished beliefs when a better idea comes along. Now, you'll find that the vast majority of people seems to back into the future, dragging all of their old experience with them. When they're confronted with a new idea, they ask, does it fit? If it doesn't, then they say it's wrong. Now, what we want to do is ask ourselves, would this new idea improve the quality of my life, or would it get me going in the other direction? Everyone, without exception, has been born with tremendous resources lying within them. We've got deep reservoirs of talent and ability. And through following right rules and natural laws, we're going to find that we can draw that potential to the surface, and we can bring it to bear, and it will cause the manifestation of prosperity in our material world. Decide what you want, write it on a card, carry the card in your pocket, and read it as often as possible every day. Now, keep in mind, I was earning $4,000, I owed $6,000. I was sitting in a fire hall at the time, and I wrote on the card that I was going to have in my possession by New Year's Day of 1970, $25,000. Now, I wrote that on the card in 1960. You know, the idea of having $25,000, it was sort of a fantasy. I don't think there was $25,000 in the whole fire hall at the time. Now, I wrote that in the card in 1960. Keep in mind, I gave myself a decade to pull this deal off. I really didn't believe it was going to happen. But I found out a couple of things. I found if you write a lie on a card and you read it often enough, you're going to start to believe it. William James, back around the turn of the century, he said, believe, and your belief will actually create the fact. Well, I did what he suggested. I read this card every day. I'd carry it around and I'd just keep reading. Now, something very funny happened to me. 1 year later, I was earning $175,000 a year. Now, that was not supposed to happen. See, everything I'd been taught since I was a little boy indicated that if you don't go to school, you can't win. If you don't have business experience, you can't win. I had not gone to school. My second month in high school, they asked me to leave. I'll never forget how happy I was when they made that decision. But here I was, I was 16, I had very little knowledge, I had absolutely no skills, and at the very best, my attitude was poor. What chance did I have? I really didn't have any. But I didn't know that. And I found that it doesn't matter what's happened in the past. You may not have a colorful background, and maybe you have. You may not have a lot of formal education, and maybe you have. But it really doesn't matter. If you've got a goal and you're willing to stick to it and study the laws, you're going to find out that you can win.
That it's necessary for us to begin to look at the future and know that it's possible that we can have our dream. Yes, it is. Other people have done it, then we can do it. We fail a lot of times. Well, a lot of other folks fail, and eventually they came back and they succeeded. So it's possible we can have what we want. And that we align ourselves with people that think like we do. It's necessary. We get negative, do-nothing people out of our lives. It's necessary. We never stop learning and growing and developing ourselves. It's necessary that we never give up, that we're going to keep on keeping on, that we're going to find a way to win or find a way to make it happen. And we know it's hard. It's not going to be a picnic. It's hard. It's hard. And we will do it hard. And once we do it hard and we go through it, we realize it was worth it. And once you discover it was worth it, it is done.
Thank you so much for watching till the end. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. Please also like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and families. Please watch our other motivational videos. Thank you again.
The basic question you are going to answer is, what do I want within the next 1 to 10 years? I want you to take about 12 to 15 minutes and make a list of at least 50 things you want within the next 1 to 10 years. These are long-range goals. To help you get started with your list, consider these questions. What do I want to do? What do I want to see? What do I want to be? What do I want to have? Where do I want to go? And what would I like to share? Now, with these thought starter questions in mind, answer the basic question. What do I want within the next 1 to 10 years? See how many things you can write down. At this point, don't take the time to describe in detail everything you want. This is the time for you to let your thoughts pour, to write fast and to abbreviate. For example, if you just write down 380, you'll know what that means. You don't have to describe the color and the interior of the car. You'll do that later in this exercise. I want you now just to abbreviate and write fast. Make the list as long as you possibly can. Try to write down at least 50 items, 50 things you want within the next 1 to 10 years. These are long-range goals. Spend about 12 to 15 minutes on this. After you've completed your list, you're ready for the next part of the exercise. Go through your list, and next to the things you think you can accomplish or acquire a year from now, write a number 1. Next to the things you think it will take 3 years to realize, write a 3. Next to the things it will take 5 years to accomplish, write a 5. And next to the things it will take 10 years to accomplish, write a 10. Go through this list now to the best of your ability and say, that looks like it will take me about a year, or 3 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. Some big goals might be out there 10 years from now. Once you complete this part of the exercise, you might come to the conclusion that you need a lot more 3-year goals and less 1-year goals, for example, or that you need more 10-year goals. You see, while you're working on one goal, you must have something else in the planning stages. If you don't, what happened to some of the early Apollo astronauts could happen to you. After they came back from the moon, some of those astronauts experienced deep psychological and emotional problems. And the reason for that, why after you've been to the moon, now where do you go? That seemed to be the end, the finish. What later astronauts did was to make sure that they had major projects lined up after they returned from the moon trip. The way you enjoy life best is to wrap up one goal and start right on the next one. Don't linger too long at the table of success. The only way to enjoy another meal is to get hungry. Another thing to check for on your list is that you have included goals for each of these 3 important categories. First, make sure you've listed your economic goals, your goals for income, profit, and productivity. Second, make certain your list includes material items you want, tangibles, such as a home, a car, a boat, furniture, or jewelry. Don't attach the wrong importance to things, but they are important. Third, you'll want to include on your list goals for personal development. Write down all your personal development goals. Your goals to be more physically fit, to lose weight, to be more decisive, to be a more effective leader, to be a better communicator, to learn another language.
One of my good friends is Tom Brady, and I can tell you he's constantly talking about being in an emergency to get better. Rodney Harrison was telling me the story that when he was a rookie for the Patriots, he got to the gym every day, the workout facility first, every single day. And he walks in one day, there's this new rookie, skinny dude, probably going to get cut, back up kind of dude in Michigan, and he walks into the gym, and this guy's in there working out already. And he goes, "Who are you?" The guy goes, "Hi, I'm Tommy." And Rodney goes, "Yeah, I'm the guy who gets here early." Brady goes, "Oh yeah, I'm going to beat you every day." And Rodney Harrison goes, "Yeah, right." So by the way, the team meeting started at 10. This was 6 a.m. They do weights after the meeting. They were the only 2 guys who went to the gym before the meeting, but they were there at 6 a.m. The next day, Rodney gets there at 5:30. Walks in, guess who's already there? Skinny Brady. Harrison's like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Tommy, I got to get here every day before you." Next day, 5 a.m., Rodney gets there. Guess who's already there? Brady. The next day, Rodney Harrison, you can tell you the story. Rodney Harrison gets there the next day at 4:30. As he walks in the door, Brady's walking out, throws his towel. He goes, "Have a good workout." I'm getting chills right now. And Rodney goes, "Who is this guy?" And Brady goes, "Listen to me, man. I got a lot of respect for you. Nobody on this team is going to outwork me. Nobody in this team is going to outwork me. You're talking about somebody who is, in my opinion, I'm biased. Our lockers are right by each other at our club. Not only the greatest quarterback of all time, not only the greatest football player of all time, arguably the greatest athlete of all time, who has almost no athletic ability. In fact, his sister was a better athlete. 8 AFC championship games in a row. Every other year he's played football, he's been in the damn Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? Really, dude? Really? Unbelievable. That's because he's outworked everybody. Because he's in a crisis to get better every day. It's not like he'd like to. You think Brady might run the mini days I talked about earlier? You think he does? Yes or no? He does. We talk about it all the time. So, here's what happened to me. Last thing I'm going to tell you. I have this hallucination. It's sort of my overall philosophy about my life, and I want to have it for you. I want to say something to you. Tonight, I promise you something. I'll pray for you. I just pray that you're happier. I pray that you win. I pray that the right deals come your way. I'm prayerful for you. I'm telling you, if you have the right business partner in your life, the greatest architect in the world, great things can happen for you. You deserve to win. You deserve to have great things happen in your life. There was a point in time in your life when you were little where you knew you were going to be somebody.
He's just going around getting lined up to be something, and in the back of his mind, he's thinking, there's something else I'm supposed to be doing. There's something else I'm supposed to be doing. There's something else I'm supposed to be doing. Discontentment leads to direction. And out of his discontentment, here comes direction down the road. And Elijah, who just got out the cave, and he's looking for Elisha, and he comes up to him, and he exposes him to something. He comes in there with his old restaurant stuff, and he exposes him to something, and his mantle passes over him, and all of a sudden Elijah cannot work in the secular arena anymore. Even if it means he has to take a cut in pay. Even if it means he has to burn the ox, he has to boil the ox and burn the plow. He has got to go with the man of God. Even if he doesn't become the heir apparent to what his parents wanted him to be, he is called to the man of God. Even if he doesn't have the prestige of controlling 12 yoke of oxen, he gives up all of that because he is exposed to destiny. That's what support ministry is made out of. People who are exposed to destiny. They're not people who are working in the church because they couldn't work anywhere else. They should be people who could have been working in the secular, making even more money, doing something even more influential and more important. But as their love for Christ grows, they give their life to ministry. Even when the check isn't as big and the notoriety is not as much, they recognize that it was God that blessed them to go to school, to learn what they learn, or do what they do, or know what they know, that they are technically endowed because God wanted to use them in the kingdom. And they are not following the zeros, they are following the purpose and the call of God. And they're willing to boil their ox and burn their plow to be in the center of their destiny. They are called to walk with God.
And I'll tell you what triggered me on this is thinking about how can I add the most value here? And engagement is one of those, new flash words in the corporate culture we all hear about. Oh, full engagement, partial engagement. But it's really true. Engagement plays such a huge role. And some of the studies that are out right now are mind-boggling. Have you seen the recent studies that they've done? 142 countries asking workers around the world, how would you describe yourself? Fully engaged, partially engaged, disengaged, aggressively disengaged. And guess what they found out? Throw it up there. Around the world, in 142 countries, they found out that 13% of employees worldwide said they were actually engaged in their work. Now, for us in this room, you'd say that's absurd, there's something wrong with the survey. Well, you'd be right. In a room like this, it's full engagement, or at least a lot fuller engagement. America has the highest engagement of any country in the world, it's 29%, which sounds so much better when you're 13. So which would you rather have, a punch in the face or a kick in the stomach? But let's flip that around and say, what does that really mean? It means 71% of people are disengaged at work in the richest, most powerful, most influential country in the world. It's mind-boggling. Now, if it was only one study, you'd say, oh, it was a partial. You can see study after study coming up with similar numbers, slightly off, but pretty much the same ratio. Now, here's what's really interesting. Of those 71%, there's a group in there, about 24% of them, that are actively disengaged. You know what that means? That means they hate what they do and they hate you. Now, this is pretty important, isn't it? They hate what they do, they hate you, and they will actively work to disempower the organization. Who has ever bumped into one of these humans? Raise your hand. Say, I. Okay, so when you bump into these humans, it's not usually a pleasant experience, and we all know they're out there. And by the way, how much damage can they do in a world that has, social media everywhere where good news travels fast and bad news travels faster, and people don't care what the truth is afterwards. It's a cool story, it makes it go. So this is an area that if you're going to change your business, you got to make a difference. So here's what I'm looking at. What makes the difference in people? What makes a difference in an organization? And I would submit to you that it isn't getting a head start. You can find individuals who you give everything to. You can love on them, give them a great education, they get a great economic background, and can spend the rest of their life going in and out of rehab. Who's seen this before? Knows what I'm talking about? Say I. On the other hand, you see people that life's kicked in the face, somebody's been abused, mentally, emotionally, physically, you name it, and they become the Oprahs of the world. So it's certainly not, advantage does not come because you were given something. And by the way, in business, advantage doesn't come because you have most resources. Companies with most resources don't win. The most resourceful companies win. The most resourceful companies are the ones where employees are the most engaged. And it's statistically proven. You look around and you say, who had the lead? Well, before YouTube, there was Vimeo. They had a year jump. Pretty much the same technology, just didn't engage as many people. Before Google, there was, what happened, Yahoo? If you're out there, what the hell happened to you people? Right? Before Facebook, there was, what happened to MySpace? Facebook was more engaging. Engagement is really the new fact. Being able to be fully engaged. And by the way, in your intimate relationship, how important is engagement? Some guys go, very important. I want to put it off as long as I can. No,